Welcome to How Good Is. Today we're going to talk about Pernelle, who I guess we've been talking about when it comes to Magia for a really long time, because she has been in Magia for a really long time, but it was never really a given that she was ever going to be a character that we could play in the game until in, I think it was the fourth TARD event, maybe even the third TARD event, where she was actually given a specific in-game model and not just a black pink silhouette, but like actually a model that was specifically done in Live 2D. That made people think like, well, if she was given a model, certainly they're gonna make her a playable character. Turns out they did. And I'm gonna say this right away, if you're just watching this to get a very quick understanding of how good this character is, like a sort of too long didn't watch summary, she's bad. She's really, really bad. And you should probably not roll for her. If you want to know more about her though, let's move on. First off, let's take a very quick glance at her personal, because it's going to give us a very good understanding of who she's supposed to be. Her personal is an active that gives damage cut and provoke. The provoke is really good, and adding some damage cut means that she's able to survive for a little bit longer. Now this might sound bad, but this personal right here is the best thing about her. Why? Because it gives her something to do. In this case, it gives her the ability to provoke, which means she can actually take some damage instead of the rest of the team for one turn, which is the most useful thing she can do. It also gives us a very important hint that she's over 1,000 years old. And this is not just about, oh, nowadays in the year 2022, she's over 1,000 years old in case she lives until today. But even in the age of TARD Magica, she was already 1,000 years old. Yes, Pernelle is indeed, if she lives until today, 2022, is over like 1,700 years old. She was apparently already like 100 years old by the time that France was founded. Like when the first Franks founded the country of France, or even the region of France, she was already there. Because she apparently knows the first king of France, Clovis, or Clovis, or whatever his name is, the first, who lived at around like 400 AD. So she's fucking old. Look at that. You see that gray hair? That gray hair doesn't mean she's just like 60 years old. She's 1,700 years old. Ooh. I almost have gray hair and I'm only like 28 years old. What the fuck? How does she do that? How does she still look like a human after 1,700 years? It's amazing. Anyway, point is, she's defensive. She's very defensive. How defensive? Well, she has a lot of HP, a lot of defense, and only a little bit of attack. It's not nothing, but it's like it's an average amount of attack for a 4-star character. So stats aren't specifically bad, they're just very, very defensive. And of course there's defense type, defense and HP growth type. Yeah, we can see she's very defensive. Now I said during the initial news that maybe she might have some use for a whale ranked mirrors, basically. Like, so if you're doing ranked mirrors, maybe you're gonna have to find some use for her. Maybe instead of a Sudachi, you can play her for a 6-hit. But even then, that was specifically for whales and only for whales. But we didn't know her entire SE, Spirit Enhancement, when that happened. Now that we know the rest of her Spirit Enhancement, yeah, she doesn't really have anything else that helps her. And it turns out that she can't actually replace Sudachi in any way. So she's actually just worse Sudachi. And the only reason you use Sudachi is for the 6-hit strat. And if the 6-hit strat doesn't work, Sudachi becomes useless. And Pernelle can't even do the 6-hit strat, which means she's more useless than someone who's useless. That kind of means that she's like completely fucking useless in every single situation, and you really, really shouldn't roll for her unless you really like her as a character. And let's be honest, she's a cool fucking character. She is a really cool fucking character. If you like her as a character, then of course you should roll for her, because as I've mentioned many times, Magia Record is the kind of game where you don't really need specific characters to be able to beat all the content in the game. So if there's a character that you really like, even if they maybe aren't the best, if you really like that character, you should still roll for them. So if you really like Pernelle as a character, you should still roll for her, even if power level wise she maybe isn't the best. But let's go on to what else she does. Connect, defense up, damage cut, and regenerate HP. 100% defensive, but being defensive is kind of terrible in this game. Magia and doppel, damage all enemies. She has low attack, so it doesn't even matter anyway. Defense up to all characters, it's a lot. Damage cut to all enemies, like these is damage to all allies. It's a lot of damage cut and a lot of defense up. But why invest? And I bring this up every single time, but it's really important to get through to people. Why get 4 slot, or just why invest heavily into a defensive character if instead you invest into an offensive character who with their doppel just kill everyone and end the entire game, than investing into a defensive character that doesn't immediately end the game and then provides some buffs. Just get the offensive character that beats everything immediately. Why get the defensive character? The only reason why you might want to get the defensive character is for 100 evils, for example. But even 100 evils, if you stack only offensive characters, you can probably just one-shot a lot of waves, or just one-shot individual characters, individual enemies in 100 evils to try and get through. And for all the other times where you can't just one-shot an entire wave, have a meteor rain ready, because turns out meteor rain, like one meteor rain is about as good as like having a defensive character. So instead of having one Pernelle, just have one meteor rain on your team, and it's gonna be about as effective for your team. Yeah, maybe defensive characters by themselves maybe aren't the greatest if just one meteor rain is already as powerful as a defensive character. So her doppel, apart from defense up, damage cut, and barrier, also gives variable to self, which is weird. So variable means that she is able to hit every single enemy for super effective damage for 3 turns, but she only has mediocre attack. So since she has only mediocre attack, and her SE isn't very aggressive either, like her SE is only defensive, like what's the point of giving her a variable? I have no idea. If you have any idea why variable might be important on her, despite being a defensive character with relatively low attack and no aggressive SE, tell me in the comments, because I would really like to know what the fuck the point is of her having variable. Tell me in the comments below, and then I'll read it, and then I'll probably go, yeah, oh, okay, that makes sense. But until then, let's take a look at the spirit enhancement. The spirit enhancement, it's kind of weird because it's a lot of stuff that she doesn't really need to be effective. She's already extremely defensive. She has so much defense and so much HP. She's probably not going to die. She's definitely not going to be the first person to die. Like, if you're going into a battle with her and a bunch of other characters, she's probably going to be the last person to die. Even just looking at the stats. Even without anything else, just going by her stats, she's going to be the last person alive. So why does she need defense up as max HP? Why? Why does she need to survive? Why does she need barrier? Why does she need regenerate HP and stars aim resistance? She's already gonna be the last person alive. Why be more defensive? Why blast damage cut? She's already gonna be the last person alive. What point is there in being more defensive? You're gonna go into a battle with her and a bunch of aggressive characters. Those aggressive characters are gonna be fucking dead by the time any of these matter. By the time her survive triggers, she's gonna be the last person in a group of 5 people standing alone on the battlefield, staring an entire enemy team in the face, going like, well, my Kyoko is dead, my Mikage is dead, my Madoka and Iroha, they're all dead, everyone is fucking dead, but at least I'm still alive as Pernelle, and I have survived for 20% of my HP. And I have a barrier and a defense at max HP. What does any of that actually matter? Tell me, please tell me in the comments below what any of that fucking matters when she's already the last person alive on her team. She's not gonna do anything. She has way too little attack to actually kill enemies. Unless enemies are already like 1000 HP or whatever, softened up by your other aggressive characters. Which makes it kind of not good. So, something that always comes up when I talk about defensive characters is, but Sudachi is a defensive character. Sudachi is a real defensive character, and she's one of the best characters in the entire game when it comes to mirrors. But only mirrors. Outside of mirrors, Sudachi also does nothing. But in mirrors specifically, Sudachi is really good. Why is Sudachi good in mirrors? Why? Because she has a MP start on one hand, so she starts the battle with a lot of MP. Then when she gets hit, she gets a lot of MP. Why? Because she has 8 bonus MP from getting hit. She has 7. I'm blind right now, so I hope I've just... I'm actually blind right now because I took off my glasses. I hope this is the right thing I just mentioned in the thing. Sudachi has 8 MP when she gets damage, plus she has 27.5, I believe something like that, bonus MP just generally. She has 27.5% just MP up. You know how much MP up Pernelle has? 0. Pernelle has 0% MP up at all times. Sudachi has 27 or like 25% MP up at all times. So not only does she get 1 more MP than Pernelle when she gets hit, she gets another 25% on top of that. So when Sudachi gets hit from an enemy, she generates an absolutely absurd amount of MP. Pernelle, on the other hand, regenerates not that much MP when she gets hit. It's still more than most characters, like most other characters, but it's nowhere near as much as Sudachi. And Sudachi also, because of MP starts on a way higher MP. So Sudachi takes like 6 hits to get the doppel. Pernelle maybe takes like 12 hits to get the doppel. So it's a really big difference. And that's what makes Sudachi so powerful, that she can get to doppel by just getting hit a bunch. Sudachi just takes some hits and boom, is at doppel, right? Pernelle can't do that. She's missing the MP start, she's missing a little bit of MP up when damaged, and she's missing out the MP up. So yeah, that kind of sucks. And if you go away from the 6-hit strategy, which by the way involves Sudachi having the lowest defense on the team, so she gets hit just naturally. If you do Sudachi without the 6-hit strat, you're doing it with provoke, right? Because Sudachi has provoke active. Guess what Pernelle doesn't have in ranked mirrors? Provoke active. Pernelle does not have provoke active in mirrors because her provoke is on her personal, and you don't get your personal on turn 1 in mirrors, so you can't use that. Instead you get damage cut and defense up, which is absolutely not that amazing in mirrors. So the only place where she could have been useful is ranked mirrors, but she's noticeably very much worse than Sudachi because she has way worse MP generation and she can't even provoke in mirrors. So what are we left with? What are we left with when it comes to Pernelle? Yeah, we're not left with fucking anything. She's someone who gets variable on doppel when she doesn't do any damage, and aside from that is completely defensive in just a general game meta where being defensive doesn't really mean anything. That said, she can still maybe be somewhat effective in 100 evils, just keeping your party alive. But that said, her effectiveness level on 100 evils is like 70%. And instead of that, a really powerful offensive Megoka that like one-shots an entire wave with their doppel, which there are plenty of Megoka out there, is also like 70% effectiveness on 100 evils. So she's not really more effective than an offensive character. She's like as effective as an offensive character, but only in 100 evils. And outside of 100 Evils, she's just worse than everything else. So 100 Evils is the best case scenario for Pernelle, and in 100 Evils, she's only as good as an offensive character with a similar amount of investment. So, she's fucking bad, dude. She's actually fucking bad. That said, like I said earlier, if you really like her as a character, roll for her anyway. Like, who gives a shit? If you want a character that you like for stuff, if you're a Pernelle fanboy or a Pernelle fangirl or a Pernelle fan non-binary, roll for her anyway. I don't give a shit. If you like a character, roll for it. End of story. But if you specifically care about power level, Pernelle is definitely not the character you want to roll for. Moving on though, she has a in her gacha, in her limited gacha, she has a 4-star Memoria. How good is it? It's basically just her connect, or like her Magia as an active, which is, it's not bad. Like, if you specifically want a defensive Memoria, it's actually extremely fucking good. Like, in terms of like defensive Memoria, this is fucking great. But it's a defensive Memoria. You probably don't want to have a defensive Memoria if instead you can have a similar level of offensive Memoria instead. So while it's powerful, there are better choices out there. So overall, I'm sorry, but Pernelle just isn't it. By now, the next character, which is Kuroe, has already been announced in the news, and Kuroe is looking like a really powerful character. And if you're still wondering, oh, should I roll for Isabeau, Pernelle, or Kuroe, you probably should ask yourself, should I roll for Isabeau or Kuroe and just remove Pernelle from the equation? Just don't worry about Pernelle. That was that. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys next time.